Welcome to this invigorating and heart-opening practice for your follicular phase. At this point in the cycle, coming out of our flow days, we're entering the building energy stage. So our hormones are on the rise and we have sort of a radiant energy outward. So in today's practice, we are going to leverage that inner chemistry to shift energy into the heart space and create an opportunity to embody love. So I'm coming out of this practice, offering this intro sort of right off the heels of this heart opening practice. And I'm feeling that softening, that expansion, and really kind of an even energy field that comes with this deeply heart opening practice. So in today, we are going to explore some challenging postures where we're using a deep back bend to find a bind in the arms. We're even exploring some hand balancing postures. So the follicular phase is a good opportunity for that. The mind and body awaken to new ideas. Our emotional and communication centers are more alive. And so it's a great time to get playful and to really explore your edge and explore new movement patterns. So there will be a bit of that in today's practice as well. We do have that lower baseline metabolism, so a bit of energy in reserve. And being that this is still, it's an invigorating and energetic, activating practice, but it's very gentle. So we are using a bit more of a long form practice for today. All you will need is a mat. If you like to use a block for support in your practice, please feel free to do so. We do have a few opportunities where it might be nice to elevate the surface of the ground a bit higher. So get those things ready and let's begin with our workout. Welcome to this heart-opening yoga practice for your follicular phase. We'll begin standing today at the top of your mat. Please join me there. Allow your feet to be about hips-width distance apart, a little bit of a bend in the knees, and just kind of find some shimmies and shakes to let your awareness inhabit your physical body. So really connecting mind and body through breath here for a few moments. Scan from head to toe, just becoming receptive to anything that the body might be wanting to share with you. Enjoy a very deep inhale through the nose. Sigh it out with an exhale through the mouth. We'll start with our flow. Inhale, reach the arms overhead, reach up, root down through the legs. Generous bend in the knees as you fold forward. Inhale, halfway lift. And as you exhale, plant the hands, step back into plank. So very simple sun salutation A here. As you inhale, shift the weight forward. Lower all the way to your belly so the body moves as a unit all the way to the earth. Enjoy a baby cobra pose here. Inhale, roll the shoulders open. Gentle press through the fingertips. The key here, really broadening across the collarbones, anchoring the hips, the legs into the mat, and then stretching them back to activate. On your exhale, release the body down. Keep your knees planted, tuck your toes. Inhale, plank. And as you exhale, downward facing dog. We'll be here just a breath or two, our first entry to this downward dog shape. Wrap your inner upper arm bones toward the front of your mat, so toward your ears, and then hug the arms to the midline to create that activation so we're not collapsing into the elbows. Press all 10 finger pads down and forward, and then lengthen the shoulder blades away from the ears toward the hips. Find that deep belly breath here. You might pedal out the feet. Then as you inhale, gaze forward, bend your knees, lift your heels. Step your feet to meet your hands, forward bend. Inhale, lift the spine halfway, stretch from the crown all the way to the tail. And as you exhale, fold over the legs. Root down through the legs, inhale, rise, reach up, look up. And exhale, hands melt down through the heart. We'll continue expanding here in sun salutation A. Inhale, reach up. This time as you exhale, take your arms out into a cactus shape. Feel the sitting bones, the sacrum, anchor toward the inner heels. And then as you knit low ribs to hip points, can you then, from that integrated place, lift up through the heart. press the shoulder blades onto the back without pinching here. So it's really kind of an integrated, expanded action. Inhale, re-extend the arms. Feel that new space in the shoulders and the upper body. And then as you exhale, fold over your legs. Inhale, lift the spine halfway, stretch the body long. And as you exhale, step back into plank. Pause for the inhale breath. As you exhale, shift the weight forward, lower the body together in one line all the way to the earth. Keep the lower body heavy. Spider your fingers off your mat just a touch. Let the elbows come up so that they're in the same plane as the shoulders. And then roll the shoulders open, lift up cobra pose. A little bit bigger this time. Maybe swaying the hips side to side. Roll the shoulders. Really lengthening the sides of the waist. Stretch back through your legs. Keep the legs active here. Exhale, release down. Hands under the shoulders. Tuck your toes. Lift your knees and thighs. And as you inhale, plank pose. Exhale, downward facing dog. And just noticing with each progression as we move through, more space, more heat. Just kind of shaking loose that energy, any stiffness you might still have. Inhale, gaze forward, bend your knees, lift your heels. On the exhale, step your feet to your hands. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, fold deeply. Inhale, rise, stretch your arms up, look up. And exhale, hands melt down through the heart, release your arms by your sides. One final round here, inhaling, reach up. This time as you exhale, take your hands behind you, either to your low spine, or you might interlace your fingers behind you. Then begin to stretch the arms straight and strong, broaden across the chest. Notice what happens here. So we're just sort of gradually adding on the mechanics of back bending. So can you knit front ribs and hip points together? Create that, not a tuck in the tailbone, but sort of an anchoring of the sacrum down. And then from that place of integration, keep that in the belly, lift up through the heart. Squeeze the heels of the hands together, dial the thumbs toward the earth. Find that expansion across the chest. Big inhale here. Keep the arms as they are, bend the knees deeply, fold over your legs, stretch the knuckles skyward. And just create an imprint of this sensation. We will be revisiting this bind in the hands often throughout this practice. As you're ready, release the hands. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, plant the hands, step back into plank. Pause for the inhale. As you exhale, shift forward. This time, lower to chaturanga if you like. Pause there, let the shoulders float, level with the elbows. And then if you're moving into cobra, come all the way to the earth. If you're going into upward dog, keep the legs lifted the whole time. Hands and feet, tops of the feet, the only touch points to your mat. Broaden the collarbones open. Stretch back through the legs to keep length in the low back. On your next exhale, downward facing dog. Pedal out the feet here. Enjoy a few rounds of breath. From downward dog here, we'll continue to warm the body. As you inhale, let your knees touch down. Come into your tabletop, shoulders over the wrists, hips over the knees. And with an inhale, begin to stretch your right leg back in space. Square the hips here, so wrap the inner right thigh up in space until you feel the level line between the hip points. Then begin to bend your right knee. Press the center of the top of your right thigh up in space. So without letting the hip flare open, can you really press the heel skyward? You feel the glute engage. So that's a key action in back bending, is to let the glutes participate and help lengthen the low spine. Touch your left hand to your heart. Begin to reach your left hand behind you. Keep the shoulders square. Hug right heel to sitting bone until you feel your hand and foot connect. Don't sweat it if they don't meet today. Just keep that directionality happening. And then as you're ready, if you have the clasp, press foot into hand, hand into foot, expand. Hug inner knees to the midline. So create that square alignment in the pelvis. And then allow your heart to extend forward and up. Center of the back thigh to lift up and back. Half bow. Gently release here, hand and foot touch down. And resist the urge to come into a deep forward bend to really create that cat shape. Just instead let the hips sway side to side to free the sacrum and let the spine come back to neutral. As you're ready, let the left leg extend back. Square the hips, square the shoulders. Feel that space between the bones of the spine as you reach the left heel back, the crown of the head forward. Bend the knee, send the heel skyward, the center of the thigh skyward. And then energize the inner thighs, squeeze them to the midline. Touch right hand to heart. Begin to reach your right hand behind you, even just creating that direction, that magnetism between hand and foot. Maybe you hug heel to sitting bone and they connect. If you have the bind, begin to press foot into hand, hand into foot. So just exploring new space. We're clearing out any congestion that remains here. Really breathe into the belly. So these backbending postures, there can be a tendency to hold the breath. Can you instead expand the lungs? Last big breath here in half bow. Press your right shin for support and slowly release. Letting the hips sway from side to side. Find your neutral spine here. You might give a gentle tuck to the tail, but without rounding too much. So we want to avoid going from one extreme shape in the spine to the other. As you're ready, walk your hands forward, tuck the toes, lift the hips up and back into downward dog. Notice how this feels after the back bend. Is there more space? Do you feel the spine more free to move? Then begin to heavy your left foot to the mat. As you inhale, stretch the right leg up and back. Just like we did in half bow from tabletop, can you begin to bend the right knee, send the center of the right thigh up and back. So without letting the hip pop open, squeeze the thighs to the midline and keep dialing that right knee up and back. Maybe gaze between your thumbs, creating a bit of a back bend in the heart. Inhale here. And as you exhale, hug your right knee into chest. This time round into the upper back. Create as much space as you can. And then step your foot through between your hands. Finding your strong lunge here. We're moving into warrior one. So if warrior one creates any strain in the back heel, you can always stay in your lunge position on the ball of the back foot. If you're joining me in warrior one, the back heel turns flat, back toes at about 45 degrees, wherever your hip joint can support without strain. Keep that deep bend in the right knee, really anchor the knife edge of your back foot. Slowly rise up in warrior one. So here, lengthen out of the hip creases. Press the right shin forward. Then we'll start to move into our cactus shape once again with the arms. So the elbows come out wide. They're level with the shoulders. And then begin to draw them back in space. So you create this broadening across the chest. Notice what happens to the low ribs here. Do they tend to flare out? So can you create this iterative process in back bending where you knit the hip points to the low ribs? From that integration, then re-extend through the chest, the heart, the upper back. So you create these sort of calibrating motions until you find that alignment that feels good in your body and allows you to experience and express that back bend, the heart opening here. Last big breath. Then as you inhale, reach the arms overhead and exhale, hands touch down to frame your foot. Your choice here. It's always an option to find a connecting vinyasa, or you can move straight to downward dog. So if you're connecting here, shift the weight forward on the exhale, lower down to chaturanga, let the shoulders stay buoyant. Either cobra with hips down or upward dog. The hips are elevated, arms are straight, shoulders are broad. Exhale, downward facing dog. So between sides here, we'll be exploring our side plank movement patterns. So as you inhale, lift your heels high up off the mat. I love the entry point from downward dog because it creates strong alignment in the shoulder. As you're ready, exhale, turn to the knife edge of your left foot. Bring your right hand to your heart, stack shoulders, stack hips. So you'll notice here, The wrist slightly ahead of the shoulder. What that does is it creates the 90-degree angle between your body and your arm, that strong, stable alignment. As opposed to being shoulder over the wrist, there's a little more strain in the joints. So really find that alignment that works for you. Maybe extend your right arm high. And can you press down through the left finger pads to lift the hips? Last big breath. As you exhale, come back through downward dog. Pedal out the feet just for a breath. And then we'll lift the heels once again, coming to the second side. Turn toes to the left, heels to the right. Find the outer edge of your right foot, left hand to heart as you stack the shoulders, stack the hips. Length in the neck here, really stretch the crown of the head forward. And then maybe extend the left hand towards the sky. Press through your right finger pads, really feel that strong connected alignment in the right shoulder. Big breath in. And as you exhale, coming back through downward dog. Moving to our second side now. As you're ready, let the left leg lift. Keep the hips square, arms strong, bend the left knee, hug heel to sitting bone. Send the center of your left thigh up and back. Maybe gaze forward between your thumbs. Create some extension in the spine here, sort of a scorpion shape. Big inhale breath. And then as you exhale, hug the knee into chest, round into the back of the heart. So here we're opening the back of the heart. We're getting it from all sides today. Step your left foot through between your hands. Back heel turns flat. Remember your options for the lunge. Really root down through the knife edge of right foot. Left shin dials forward. Create separation between the thigh bones. From here, reach the arms up, warrior one. Coming into that cactus shape as you're ready once again, letting the elbows come wide. And notice that your hips, it may be a challenge to get them fully square. And it's okay if that back hip is a bit open. We're just creating that intention, that directionality of squaring the pelvis to the front. But your shoulders, your torso can move independently. So really create strength in the belly to square the shoulders. So the elbows are out wide in a cactus shape. Press the shoulder blades onto the back. And then we iterate. So move the left shin down and forward. Knit the hip points and low ribs together. And then dial up through the heart. Rotate the shoulders open. Maybe you start to send your gaze up. Feel the heat. On your next inhale, reach the arms skyward as the hips descend. And exhale, hands touch down to frame your foot. Come on to the ball of the back foot. Your choice here, either moving through a connecting vinyasa or straight to downward dog. If you're connecting, we come through chaturanga, either to the belly for cobra or floating and lifting up for upward dog. As you're ready, downward facing dog here. Pedal out the feet. Enjoy a few breaths. And then as you're ready, we'll let the knees touch down. Sway the hips side to side. And then we'll lower all the way onto the belly. So we'll be exploring bow pose now. So this is a belly down back bend. We'll have 3 rounds to practice, getting progressively deeper should you choose to go that route. So our first round, we're simply reaching the arms back, dialing the shoulders open, bend the knees, and then create that energy of the inner thighs to the midline. So we're creating that activation through the glutes. And then as you're ready with an inhale, lift the heart, lift the thighs as high as they'll go. Stretch your fingertips toward your knees. Maybe even rotate the thumbs upward, the palms out. So you create that space in the heart. Lift your thighs 1 inch higher. Squeeze the inner knees together. Feel the activation in the rivers of the spine, so strong. And release. Pillow your hands. Let your hips sway from side to side. So this action of letting the hips release lets the sacrum be free. So in our second round now, you have the option for the bind. So much work to be had without the bind. So there's a lot of glute activation, a lot of engagement in the musculature of the spine if you choose to go without the bind. But if you're moving into the bind, begin to bend your knees deeply, hug your heels to your sitting bones, flex the feet. Reach your hands for the outer edges of feet or maybe even ankles if they connect. Roll the shoulders open. And then with your next big inhale breath, press feet into hands, hand into feet. So keep the hip points grounded. Hug inner knees together. Lift the thighs. Stretch the heart up and out. And start to feel your energy expand. So your heart rate might become elevated. You feel a bit of heat. Last few breaths here. Really press your feet into your hands. Equal and opposite action. Hands back into feet. And release here. Pillow your hands. Sway your hips from side to side. So the goal between these expressions of the back bend is to let that sensation in the spine dissolve. So really enjoying a few breaths here until you feel kind of all of that heat, any tingling in the low spine, release. And then our final round of bow pose here. The bind for kind of the deepest expression can be now the inner ankles, inner edges of the feet. So it just creates a bit more rotation, external rotation in the shoulders. As you're ready with an inhale, press feet into hands, hands into feet. So really allowing the shoulders and chest to stay spacious. Melt the shoulders away from the ears. If you find any strain in the neck, just let the head melt down so you can really free the back of the neck here. Inflate the lungs. Find that equal and opposite action. Last big breath. And release. Pillow your hands. Sway the hips. So feel the activation in the front and back of the heart here. And notice any change you feel in the front body, along the back body. As you're ready, let your hands come under your shoulders. Tuck the toes, lift your knees and thighs. With an inhale, press into plank, and exhale, downward dog. So here we're kind of finding a bit of a neutral spine, so not really curling the spine or extending. Just continuing to neutralize the spine as we move into our next round of flow, our next wave. Let the left foot grow heavy. Inhale, stretch your right leg up and back. This time, allow the hip to open, right heel to sitting bone, square the shoulders. So create that independence between the upper and lower body. Re-extend the right leg as you're ready. As you exhale, this time round. So a bit of a counter pose now to that deep back bend and bow. Let your back heel turn flat, entering warrior one once again. So this should feel a bit more spacious, a bit more freedom throughout the body as we enter our second round. As you exhale, this time interlace your fingers behind you. Optional clasp. If that's too much, you can take opposite wrists or even opposite elbows, just finding a slightly different sensation. Create the back bend here, drawing the knuckles toward the earth. Let your low ribs magnetize to your hip points, and then reopen through the heart. Big breath in. As you exhale, coil through the belly, reach the crown of the head forward first, and then bow the crown of the head, the shoulders inside your right knee for humble warrior. Find a counterweight to the torso by stretching your knuckles skyward. Can you square the shoulders to the earth? Move the right shin forward, root down through the outer edge of back foot. And then stay strong in the legs as you slowly rise back up. Free the hands, inhale, rise. There's a bit of power, a bit of buoyancy as the bind is released. As you exhale, hands touch down. Your choice, connecting vinyasa or straight to downward dog. Flow through with your breath. Use this time as a reset. So between sides, once again, exploring our side plank pattern. As you inhale, lift the heels. Come on to outer edge of left foot, stack the shoulders, stack the hips. Right hand finds the heart. Step your right foot behind your left knee. Stay on the ball of that foot. Then begin to spin your heart skyward. Lift your hip points skyward, coming into wild thing. So really activating the legs to leverage a deeper back bend in the heart. Maybe reach your right arm overhead. Can you lift up through the back of the heart? Really move the back bend to that place. And then slowly come back down. Right hand touches down. Find downward dog. So always pivoting on the balls of the feet to create that mobility. And exploring the second side here, heels lift. Come onto the outer edge of right foot, stack the hips, stack the shoulders. Left hand finds the heart. Step your left foot behind your right knee and let it stay pretty close. That helps create the hugging to the midline of the thighs when the legs are not too far spread. And then as you're ready, turn the heart, turn the hips skyward. Begin to lift up into your back bend, your wild thing. Feel that essence of wild thing, that free spirit that expresses through the heart. Maybe stretch the left arm overhead. Full belly breath. And slowly come out. Finding downward dog once again. Just notice the sides of the waist. Do you feel more length throughout the torso? Coming into the left side now. As you're ready, stretch the left leg up and back. Bend the left knee, open the hip, but then square the shoulders. Requires a lot of activation through the belly to create that rotation. Re-extend the left leg here, inhale. And as you exhale, coil through the belly, round into the upper back. Step the left foot through between your hands, back heel flat. Inhale, warrior one. Reach the arms overhead. Find your clasp, your bind once again on this side. So either yoga mudra with the knuckles interlaced or finding wrists or opposite elbows. So iterate here, move the left shin forward, hip points to low ribs, and then re-extend through the heart. Dial the knuckles toward the earth. Big breath in. As you exhale, coil through the belly to create stability. Really press through your back heel. Bow the gaze, the crown, to the inside of your left foot. Finding that counterweight, stretch the knuckles skyward, and then let the heart and hips melt to the earth. Deep hip opener here. And then strengthen the legs as you slowly come up and out. Free the hands and feel that buoyancy as they rise up in warrior one. On your exhale, hands come down to frame the foot. Your choice, either moving through vinyasa or join me in downward dog. Whatever feels most supportive, most appropriate for you at this point in your practice. So we'll follow that sequence now. Between waves, we'll let the knees come down. We'll explore a deeper back bend. So we're coming into camel pose. Just like Bo, we will have 3 opportunities to sort of progress the practice a little deeper. So you can always stay with the initial expression of camel, or you can move deeper as we go. So in this first round, offer your palms forward. Let the knees stay about hips width distance and create a bit of activation, a bit of hugging to the midline through the thighs so you feel the legs engage from the beginning. Begin to open the palms out to the side. Bring your hands to your sacrum, that flat bone right at the base of your spine. You can keep fingers up or fingers down. Wherever you are, draw the elbows into each other. Knit hip points to low ribs. It's this record that loops, but it's always good to have that reminder. In back bending, it's too easy to really just crunch into the low back and let the ribs flare. So instead, stay integrated. Keep your energy contained. As you're ready, with an inhale, lift through the heart. Begin to press the thighs forward and lean back into your hands. Let the glutes fill your hands. So as you squeeze the inner thighs together, the glutes become active. That helps you lengthen the low spine. Lift up through the heart. If it feels okay in your cervical spine and your neck, you can look up and back. Then slowly send your gaze forward. Come out of the back bend. So if full flexion in the knees is not comfortable, you can stay in this kneeling posture between rounds. Otherwise, let your hips come down to your heels. Same thing here, whether you're kneeling or sitting down, just let your sacrum sway side to side. Add a bit of tone to the low belly, just kind of a gentle counter pose before we enter the back bend once again. As you're ready, come up to your kneeling position. This time tuck the toes so that your heels are lifted. Offer your palms forward. Begin to turn them out. Create that integration in the low belly. And then same thing we did in bow. Create that directionality, reaching the palms open, fingers back. And if you can, without leaning the hips back, can you create the back bend to find your heels? So you want the thighs as best as you can to stay upright and forward. Press out with your hands on your heels, hug back with your heels on your hands. Enjoy a huge breath here. And then continue lifting up through the spine as you press the thighs forward. You can choose to send the gaze back if that feels okay in your neck, otherwise staying neutral. So for me, I'm keeping the gaze forward for now. Breathe fully into the sides of the waist here, last one. And then bring your hands to your sacrum to exit the pose, just creating that pillar of support as you release. So letting the sand settle once again, just letting the hips be free to move independent of the torso. So that creates a bit of recalibration in the low spine so that the sensation can dissipate. And then we'll prepare for our deepest expression in Camel as you're ready, coming up. Letting the shins stay parallel. This time you can keep your feet flat, or you can stay with either of the other two options. Once again, offering the palms forward, turning the hands out, reaching back as far as you can before leaning back to create the connection, hands to heels. And then with your breath, shifting the thighs forward, lifting up through the heart. Really press your hands into your heels back into your hands, to create that traction across the front of the chest. You should be able to breathe and even speak freely here. So there's no blocks, no pinch points, just full freedom in the spine. Bring your hands to your sacrum to exit here. And then slowly rest, whether that's in your kneeling posture or with your heels and your hips touching. You might let your palms just rest on your thighs, facing up to sort of receive that shower of energy that you've unlocked through the heart opening, the back bending, the spinal release. And so as you're ready, let your hands slide forward, unfold into your downward facing dog. Letting the hips gently sway from side to side. And then as you're ready, let your right leg extend up and back. Stack the hips. This time keep the right leg straight, squaring the shoulders once again. Just exploring that sensation. And then re-square the hips, inhale. As you exhale, step the right foot through between your hands. Back heel turns flat. Reach up, rise up, warrior one. Finding the bind once again, interlacing fingers behind you. Create integration in the low belly here. Inhale, breath. As you exhale, begin to reach the crown of the head as far forward as it will go. Let the back foot grow light, come onto the ball of the back foot, and then transfer the weight from the back foot to the front. Maybe let the back toes lift. You can always keep that kickstand down if you need to. If you're letting it float up, really reach through the left toes and hug the inner thighs to the midline. Create integration in the low belly. Stretch your knuckles skyward as a counterweight to the torso. Broaden the sole of the right foot. Spread the right toes. And then from here, releasing the hands so that you have 3 points of support on the earth. And with that, take some of the weight off the right hip to stack the left hip on top. So opening the hips here. You can let your right hand stay planted. Bring your left hand to your heart. Maybe finding half moon. So really lengthening the limbs in all directions here, taking up space, radiating outward. It's the theme of the follicular phase, just shining that energy outward. Then here, just creating some directionality for the back bend, bending the left knee, reaching the fingertips back behind you as if you were to create the bind. And then slowly re-extending, let the left hand come down first. Take a bit of weight off the right hip to square the left leg down. Slowly release the toes to the earth. Press into your hands, come back into plank. Your option here, either downward dog or moving through your connecting vinyasa. You might be shifting down to cobra or even skipping that back bend in between. If you're starting to feel any fatigue in the spine here. As you're ready, let the left leg extend. Stack the hips, keep that left leg reaching back. Square the shoulders to the earth. Big breath in. And then keep that leg extending, square the hips. Hug the knee into chest, step the left foot through between your hands. Turn the back heel flat, rise in warrior one. Interlace the fingers behind you, find yoga mudra. Square the shoulders here, big inhale breath. And then as you exhale, reach the crown of the head forward, counter that by pressing through the back heel. Keep shifting weight forward, come onto the ball mound of your back foot. And then slowly shift weight from right to left. Maybe those right toes float off the mat. Acknowledging any difference you feel, maybe more challenge on one side than the other. Spread your left toes, anchor through all 4 corners of your left foot. Keep the knuckles moving skyward. Steady your gaze. Release the hands as you're ready. So you have 3 points of support now. Take some weight off the left hip as you stack the right leg on top. Bring right hand to heart. Feel expansion here, reaching the limbs in all directions, radiating. Then you can start to reach your right fingertips toward your right foot. Bend the right knee, hug the heel to the sitting bone, and kind of expand into the heart a bit, creating that direction of the back bend. Let your right hand touch down. Take some weight off the left hip to square the hips down. Let your right toes float to the earth. Your choice here, either straight to downward dog or connecting vinyasa. We're moving into our peak pose, if you will, the most challenging that we've been kind of preparing the body for throughout this practice. So we're entering our side plank pattern once again. As you inhale, lift the heels. Turn onto the outer edge of left foot. Stack the shoulders, stack the hips. So just like in half moon here, begin to reach the right arm skyward. Let the right leg lift with it. Start to bend the right knee, reach your fingertips toward your right foot. Maybe they connect, maybe they don't. Just create that intention. If you find the connection, you have the bind, begin to press foot into hand, hand into foot. Just like the sensation in Wild Thing, can you press into the bottom arm to shift the back bend into the upper back of the heart here. Maybe let your gaze reach back. And then slowly controlled exit here, moving back through downward dog, pedaling out the feet. Come on to the balls of the feet. Turn the toes to the left, heels to the right. Come on to the outer edge of right foot. Stack the shoulders, stack the hips. Same thing on this side, left hand to heart, and then let it reach up. That same lift of the left leg now. And then begin to bend the left knee, hug heel to sitting bone, reach your left hand for the outside of left foot. Press through all 5 finger pads of your right hand for stability. Knife edge of right foot. And then begin to press your left hand into your left foot here, creating equal and opposite action, extending the back bend, creating space between the bones. Maybe let the gaze follow. A natural extension of the spine. And slowly come out. Find your downward dog. Let the hips sway side to side. Take your downward dog nice and wide here. You might bend the knees a little bit to create some counter pose in the low spine. So we've made it to the arc of our practice, and we'll start to come down now slowly. Let your knees touch down to the mat. Finding your neutral spine here, really lengthening from the crown to the tail. So the neutralizing shape for back bending before we move into a deep counter pose is going to be rotation. So twists can kind of reset, recalibrate the spine before we move into forward bending. So take your right hand, thread it under your left, bring right ear to the mat. Feel that gentle rotation. Let the hip creases lift up and back. You free the low spine, keep it long. Very gently coming back through center, switching sides now. Left arm under right, creating rotation, leveling the hips as best as you can. This should feel very soothing for the spine. It's been working hard for us throughout this practice. And slowly come back through center. Come into a puppy pose so the hips reach back. And just allow your forehead to rest on the earth, stretching the arms. And then slide forward onto your belly. Let the forearms stay on the mat for Sphinx pose. So in Sphinx here, we're just allowing the spine to stay long, and then we'll use Sphinx for a bit of counter pose. So as we've expanded the front body, now we'll counter with a bit of contraction to kind of recenter the abdominals, our connection to the core, as counter to the deep heart opening. So keep your knees and your lower legs grounded, your forearms pressing into the mat, and then simply roll the low spine in and up. You can even let your chin move to your chest. Really feel that deep core activation. And with that, you might find a bit of release along the spine. Come down, inhale. And as you exhale, roll in and up. We'll take 3 more like that. Curling in and up, creating that connection to the belly. It's sort of like we open and expand out. We let ourselves out there, but then we want to bring it back into our safe space, that place where we can let the front body be protected. And release, come down. Stretch the arms out, roll onto your back now. So with a bit of counter pose, some rotation now, it should feel good to hug your knees into your chest. Really allowing your spine to move into that opposite alignment. You might even bring the chin to the knees, the forehead to the knees. And if it feels okay, you can start to kind of let the hips lift. So not full plow pose here, but just creating that cocoon action of rounding in. And then keep the knees hugging in, and we'll simply lower the legs over to the left. You can let your arms open however they feel most comfortable, maybe to a cactus shape. Send your gaze over your right shoulder. And let this twist be completely passive. So if you find yourself gripping in the low belly or the groin to keep the legs in a particular orientation, just let all of that go. Release the weight of your legs to gravity. You might soften the gaze, let the eyes close. So again here, just letting any residual sensation in the spine dissolve. Very gently tone the low belly to come out. You can switch sides now, letting the knees drop to the right. You might come on to the right hip if that feels better for your twist. Send your gaze to the left, either with a soft gaze or eyes closed. You can release any control you might still have over the breath. Let it flow naturally. You might find that your natural rhythm is a bit softer, a bit slower. And at the same time, there's this energy permeating all of the cells, sort of complementing the follicular phase where we're unlocking our natural resource of energy. Come back through center now. One more squeeze of the knees. And then let your feet come to the mat. Just windshield wiper your knees from side to side. And for our final resting posture, I would recommend bringing your knees together, feet wide apart. Soften the shoulders. Bring a hand to heart, a hand to belly. So really drawing awareness into the heart space. You have excavated through breath and movement new space in the body. You're probably a bit taller after that practice, literally taking up more space in the world, creating more space from the inside out. And can you use that expansion, that radiant energy outward to embody love? If you were to infuse your being with love, fill all of that new space with love, what would that look like? How would you hold yourself in this moment? How would you see yourself right now as you are? Looking through the lens of love. Only when you're ready, you can join me in the journey back up to a seat, or just stay in your resting posture as long as you need, as long as you like. And just continuing to expand and let your awareness rest in the space of the heart. And if you're joining me in a seat, just give yourself a few moments here as you transition to observe. Notice if you're holding yourself differently. Does your breath feel different? Do you feel any heat? Just acknowledging and celebrating yourself for the effort you put into your practice. I want to thank you so much for joining me today and for letting your body be moved.